Hey guys, it's Christina here. I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you are in the world. Today is what I like to think about as my birthday, survivor day, thriver day. So I say that because today is the day for me when I woke up off life support after having my last baby. And it is a special day for me because I like to remember where I've come from and how far I've changed and how far I've grown and where I'm going to as well. And today would be, if I was counting it as my birthday, which I kind of like to do, if I was counting it as my birthday, today would be my 6th birthday. So today's the 6th day of, the 6th year of surviving after, coming off of life support and going through a near-death experience with my last baby. And so it's always a good day for me to remember and to reflect what are the things that I've learned so far after that experience. And there's heaps and heaps of things that I learned going through that experience in the lead up to having her and giving birth, and then also to the experience of being in hospital, and then the experience of the aftercare, and then even beyond that, the experience of starting to walk a new journey. And so I wanted to share with you today some of those lessons that I have learned, and hopefully they will resonate with you, and some of them may be really helpful and serve you as well in your own life. So number one on the top of my list of things that I learned having woken up from life support was how important our gut health is. I knew previously how important our gut health was because I'd been doing gaps with my family. We'd been doing a lot of gut work and, rebuilding and reestablishing the microbiome and rebuilding the gut integrity and doing all of the things that actually helped to build the gut. I've got a bit of an audience in here today, so if you hear anything or see anything or see me looking off camera, it is because I have 2 children, 2 cats, a husband, there's a 3rd cat over there somewhere, all in the same room as me as well. So if you're here, say hi, let me know that you're on. But how important, getting back to it, was how important our gut health is. Because for me, after the experience of being on life support, my whole body was kind of totally trashed. My gut was trashed. I'd had, antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic. They'd given me, a whole heap of medication to help keep me alive. There was a lot of processes that needed to happen, with things going down my throat and breathing instruments and so on. There was a lot there that was used to keep me alive. But after that, my microbiome in my gut was completely disturbed. It wasn't what it was prior to going into that situation. The other thing along with that is because there was so much trauma in there, I had this really deep depression that I went through after having that experience. There was a period of time where I was like, oh yay, I'm glad I'm alive. But then after that, as the reality of what I'd been through started to set in, and the reality of what my new normal was, and the reality of things that I had always taken for granted, like being able to have another baby, I kind of always took that for granted. But then all of a sudden my uterus was gone. So I didn't have that with me anymore to be able to fulfill that. I didn't have that choice. It was completely taken away from me. And along with that, because I was so sick and because, I'd been on life support for a week, I didn't breastfeed my baby for that first week, and my body was trying to do as much as it could just to keep me alive. It didn't have the extra energy to actually then sustain a baby. Hey, Catherine. So I didn't have the ability to keep making milk for her. And that for me was another stabbing wound to my heart. In, any of you mothers out there who have ever breastfed your babies or have ever gone through the experience of losing your milk, that kind of comes close to the situation. But the other challenge for me in that was that I couldn't have any more babies. So of course I couldn't say to myself, it's okay, Christina, we'll do the best we can here. We'll get donor milk, we'll do whatever. And I'll just breastfeed the next baby. It'll be okay. I couldn't say that message to myself, and I still had that feeling of being completely useless because I couldn't go around and clean up after everyone. I couldn't make meals. I couldn't do all the things that I had been used to doing, and I couldn't feed my baby. And so there was this huge sort of darkness that came over me during this experience, and, you know, really deep depression. And I went through a lot of thoughts, some of which were suicidal, and how could I end my life without people knowing that I'd ended my life? That was one of the big thoughts that had gone through my mind during that experience. And bringing it back to gut health, it wasn't until I had distanced myself from that experience, like time really was in my favor, in the sense of around the 8-month mark, when some of the immediate trauma started to dispensate. I got bladder bags out, I got other things out, I started to gain a little bit of energy back again. I was able to care for myself a little bit more, that I started to remember the things that I already knew. And the things that I already knew were how important gut health was, and how mine had been completely, you know, wiped out in many ways with all of the huge amounts of antibiotics that I had, but also the crap food that I was eating. For the first 4 months, I didn't really even eat much food. I really was on soft liquids. And then starting to think about, you know, if I look at it from in my practitioner brain, my brain goes, no wonder you were going through all of that experience. Like, there's a massive amount of trauma, and the food that you're eating and the microbial food that you're eating is not supporting you to have good brain function. So the two together is going to make a crappy combination. And when I started to do the foods of, you know, bringing back my sauerkraut, I started with my supplements because I just couldn't do the making of things. So I actually started with my probiotic supplement and started adding that in. And I started to notice that my brain was picking up, my mood was picking up, and my energy was starting to pick up. And then I was able to actually make, you know, my sauerkrauts and my kimchis and my kombuchas and my milk kefirs and all of those sorts of things to start to pick up my gut health again. And along with, you know, my broths and stews and those sorts of things to feed and nourish myself in a way that I hadn't been doing for, you know, those 8 months prior to that. And so, number one, my biggest tip is, remember, your gut health affects your mental health. And no matter what trauma you're going through, if you are not feeding yourself and your gut health well, it's going to make it worse. So if you know somebody who's going through a traumatic event, or they're going through a depression, start feeding them. You know, start feeding them good food. Start helping them to rebuild their microbiome, because at minimum, it's going to help them see and think clearer. So if you can start feeding them that way, showing them love that way, that can help as well. What else did I learn? Oh, I learnt... one of the big lessons that I learned was that I needed to get in front of the camera more. So I'd been doing the whole thing that many of us mums do, where we become the photographer for the family. So we take everybody's photos and not our own, because we have our own crappy beliefs inside our heads about what we look like and how we look. Or we take a photo and we go, oh, that doesn't match the image that I have in my brain about me. And so we avoid getting in photos. And so I realized that after that experience that I hadn't actually been fair to my family, because I'd been leaving them photos of myself behind. And so that was a big thing for me, working through why wasn't I leaving photos of myself behind, and then actually starting to take the action of putting myself back in those photos. So like now, if you go over to my Instagram or anything like that, or even on here, you'll see there's heaps of selfies. And some of that is me leaving my legacy for my family and my friends, so that they've got a range of photos that they can choose from. When I eventually do get to that time where I need to have a funeral, they've got a range of photos that they can pick from. Hopefully they're picking the ones that I like, but there's a huge amount of them there for them to choose from. But it was important for me to start creating some photographic memories for my family, as well as for me. And that was a really important thing, because as I started to do the thing of, okay, what is the rubbish stories that stop me from being in the photos, the more I thought about that and the more I unpacked that, the more I started to bring my awareness to all of the history and the crappy thoughts that I'd had about myself and why they were there and how I'd started them and whether they were true, and started to counteract them, and you know, started to change my own thinking about who I was and how I felt about myself. That process all started by me making a commitment to myself to get in more photos and to get in front of the camera and start doing the things that I loved to do, instead of hiding those parts of myself that I loved but didn't look pretty. That, you know, like going swimming with my kids, that was a big thing for me. Like, I just didn't do that because I didn't look great in bathing suits, and so I just didn't do it. And now, you know, we go camping, we go to my sister's shack, and we go swimming, and I love to do that. That's a big part of me expressing who I am and sharing who I am and the things that I loved with the people that I love, and exploring that part of me with them. So that process was a big one, and there was heaps that came out of it, because, you know, the more you face up to why you're not doing the things that you're doing, the more you have to ask the questions and unpack the things and decide and just make decisions and feel the fear of exposing yourself in a way that you've not done in a long time, on jumping out of your comfort zones in ways that you haven't done in a long time as well, and feeling the fear and just doing it anyway, even though it still feels uncomfortable, even though it doesn't feel, you know, it feels a little bit out of my comfort zone. I'm going to do it anyway, because I know that I'm going to love the experience afterwards, and it's going to fulfill more of my longer term goals and legacies that I want to leave behind. I don't want my kids to not know who I was. I don't want them to not have experienced time with me loving me. And I don't want them to think that they shouldn't love themselves because of some silly ideological viewpoint from the media that you have to look a particular way. And so getting back to those sorts of roots was really super duper important to me. The number 3 on my list of things that I learned, having come off life support, is we all have our own uniqueness and our own unique, amazing journey that we're here to bring and that we're here to share with the world. We all have our own sort of passions and stories and this little ball of genius that's actually just ours, this little gift of who we are and this spark that lives inside of us that we can share with the world in any way we choose to share it. But for me, I wanted to share that in a way that was healing for other people, that was also going to be rewarding for my family, and provide us with an income for ourselves. And so I think the more I work with clients and the more I see it in everyone, is that everyone has some sort of passion and gift that they've been given. And part of our journey here on the earth is actually to explore that and to find out what that is and to embrace it and to really start to express it and share that with the world. And that is, you know, I just think, how awesome would it be if everybody was completely attached to what their special gift was and where their special giftings were, and really embraced those parts of themselves instead of hiding them because we're afraid that somebody's going to cut us down. And if we embraced those and everybody started to share it, what an amazing world we would actually be living in. That would be so full of color and vibrancy and passion, and people who are fulfilled and happy and enlightened and enjoying their lives. And that brings me into another thing, is that, you know, one of the other lessons that I learned on life support was that life is so short. It can be over in minutes. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. A truck could freakily drive through my car, drive through my house, and that would be the end of me right now today. I'm not planning on that happening. I doubt that that's going to happen, but I actually don't know. I have no control over whether that was to happen. And having learnt that it is very short and it can happen at any moment makes me start to think, well, why would I be living it in any way that is less than satisfying, that I'm not loving, that I'm not chasing after, that it's not igniting me, that's not filling my cup? Why would I choose to live life in a way that doesn't, you know, give me passion and purpose and feel all the things that I need to be feeling in this life? Because it is so short and it's over in a second, and so many people leave so much undone and so much unsaid and so much unexperienced. I don't want to be that person. This is my second chance. I don't want to be that person that, you know, is on their deathbed going, oh, I only wish that I'd done it this way, or I'd only wish that I'd just got to know me more, or I'd only wish that I'd accepted who I was more and decided that I was enough and just started to live that way. And so if there's a message that I could share with anyone, is that you are absolutely enough. Who you are right now, you are absolutely enough. You are lovable, you are worthy, and you are totally worthy of having the life that you want to be having and leading it with the people that you love to be around. Don't cut yourself short. Don't cut yourself short, because life is far too short already for you not to be passionately pursuing the things that you love to be pursuing. And if there is something that is in your way that is stopping you from currently passionately pursuing the things that ignite you and enlighten you and fire you up, figure out how to move that obstacle. And that is part of what I do in my job, is I help people how to figure out how to move that obstacle. In this space, I figure it out in helping you with healing. In my other business, I figure it out by helping you with your business and your strategy that you might need to implement. But whatever it is, it's about figuring out what is in your way from stopping you from passionately pursuing the things that you want to be pursuing and sharing your message with the world. And then let's figure that out. And so you can just get on with doing what it is you want to be doing. And so that message of it is, life is far too short to be wasting it on doing things that you don't enjoy, that you don't like, that don't fill your cup or don't serve a purpose. So sometimes we have to do things that we don't like, but they serve a purpose. But it's too short to spend your whole life doing things that you don't like that serve very little purpose for you. So it's a good opportunity for me every year at this time to remember, am I doing the things that fill my cup? Are they serving my purpose? Am I on the path of living that life that I really am passionate about living? Or are there things that need to be pruned? Are there things that need to go? And there are things that need to be shaped? I'd love to hear your thoughts on what I'm sharing as well today. So leave some comments. I can't see any comments, so I'm not sure if Facebook's sharing them with me or not. But I can see a heap of people here coming on. So hi everyone, Robin, Lalita. Beautiful name, by the way. I love it. So what else did I learn having come off life support? Oh, here's a big one. We control far less than we think that we actually do. That's a big one. So having woken up on life support, I had a tube down my throat, I've still got little scars here where I had needles in there pumping blood into my heart. I had just about every arm had a tube in it. I had tubes everywhere else, so I had bladder and bowels all tubed. Everything that you could think about just about was tubed. And waking up on that experience and realizing I couldn't even move, that I had to, the lack of control I had of my own body at that moment in time was huge. It was huge. And having gone from somebody who was completely in control, managing, a household of 6 children at that time and homeschooling and doing all the things that I was doing, and then waking up from what I thought was just a C-section to being on life support and having no control over even my bodily functions, and having other people come and roll me in the bed. So they would come every 2 hours and they'd roll me to one side, and then that would be really painful. So I would eventually get myself back into the middle for the next 2 hours, then they'd come and they'd roll me the other way. And again, that was really painful. So I'd spend the next 2 hours using all my might just to roll my body back into that most comfortable position that was least painful. And in that moment, I realized I have absolutely no control here. I'm using all of my might to move my body from a side position to a front position. I'm using all of my energy to be able to do that. And I really control very little in my life at that moment. But actually, even now, there's a lot that I don't actually control. I don't control the weather. I can move to a place where it might be warmer. I can have heaters and I can do all those sorts of other things, but I actually don't have control over that. What I do have control of though, and what I did have control of in that moment when I couldn't even roll my own body over, was what was going on in here, and what was going on in my own thought space, and what was going on with how I'm talking with myself and how I continue to talk with myself. So even now, that is the space where I have the most amount of control. over what I choose to allow to go around in my head and what I choose to confront, and the belief work and the ideas and the attitudes and all of the ways that I think and feel about things. That is what I do have control over. And I can use that to my advantage, and I can also use that to my disadvantage. So there was that period of time where came home, I was very, very depressed, and I used that mindset stuff to my disadvantage. Like, the words that I was saying to myself were words of death. They were disempowering. There was no hope in them. There was a lot of really negativity in that space. But the way I moved out of that was actually to start to change that thinking, to change what was going on in my headspace. Now, my situation hadn't changed at all, but the way that I felt about my situation had changed, because I started to think in a way that was actually more empowering, that allowed me to believe that there was hope, to move forward in actually making decisions for myself and starting to plan and think about, how do I want life to be different now that I have a second chance? What would I do if I got, how would I live my life now if I had a second chance? And actually, it's reminding me of we listen to a radio station down here in Hobart, and there's this married couple that are on the station. I never remember their names. Oh, Luke and Susie. Okay, so I do remember their names, Luke and Susie. Hey, Nicole. And so for them, they asked this question quite recently, and it was, if you knew you had 3 months, like the world ended in 3 months' time, if you knew that the world ended in 3 months' time, what would you be doing if you knew that that was the outcome? And I went, oh, that's really interesting. I know exactly what I would be doing. It's not what I'm doing right now. It's something that I'm working on doing. Like, I would just, get rid of everything and go do that straight away. I'm working towards doing that. However, how many people would have a completely different, like, they would know exactly what it is that they would be doing if they had 3 months to live, or the earth only existed for another 3 months. They knew exactly what they would be doing, but aren't doing anything today that even resembles that, or aren't planning on even doing some of that, or aren't working towards creating that in their own lives right now. How many people today, if they knew that they had 3 months to live, or there was 3 months of the earth even existing, what would they do? But they're not actually doing anything about getting any closer to that today, when they don't know how long they're going to live. And I thought that that was a really interesting question. It was one that really resonates for me at this time of the year, as I start to look back at what my life has been like for the last year, what I want it to be like in the year going forward. So I have learnt some amazing lessons in the last 6 years, having gone through that experience. I continue to share those with you guys, with the world, anybody who will listen, because I think it's worthwhile, people having a check and reassessing where they are and what they feel about their lives. Because for me, the greatest sadness is when somebody has lived on the earth for a really long time, but never really lived in their own body and in their own heart, and never lived out who they actually are. Because they don't know who they are. They've forgotten that along the way. And they've got caught up in the whole rat race and the hype around what we need to be doing and matching up to the Joneses and all of that sort of stuff. But they've never even asked themselves, do I even like the Joneses? Do I even want to be like the Joneses? What do I want to be like? Who do I want to be like? How do I want to live my life? What feels really good for me and what really satisfies me? And that for me is the key element of what I've learned from waking up from life support, is learning who I am, loving who I am, deciding who I am is freaking awesome and that's okay, and deciding that it's okay for me to start pursuing the things that I really want to do and share that message with the world. All right, that is me for today. I hope you have an amazing day. Happy 6th birthday for me, having woken up from life support on this day. My husband's behind the camera doing a whoop whoop. He was very glad that I woke up from life support, so he should definitely make me a cake today, I think. All right, bye for now. I look forward to hearing what you have to say about this, and if you want to contact me more, working on any of the things that I work with, whether it be gut health or whether it be life coaching, message me because I'd love to help you get closer to who it is you are and following your dreams passionately. All right, bye for now. Have an amazing day.